I think it is safe to say that everyone knows the rush of anticipation before a big event, a reunion or birth of a child. For the students, the impending end of the semester with all the study and the exams that await and the pressure that is there, and you can't wait till it's over. There's an anticipation that kind of has to be suppressed because it's not over until it's over, which is a good image for Advent. It's not over till it's over. You know, it's not over till the exams are done, and hopefully you've put all the work into it that you needed to do your best. The ending of course, so the ending of school and the anticipation of Christmas morning is an exciting time, but also a time of major preparation. Everybody wants everything to be just right. In the midst of all this, there's often a nagging question if we sit in the quiet and sort of reflect on what's going inside of us, and not just what we're doing, but what's going on inside of us. Will this be enough? Will I feel satisfied or fulfilled when it's all over? Sort of to jump ahead a bit, you know, January can be a depressing month. It actually is for a lot of people. Why? Because the bills are coming. All right, so this is a good question for us to ask because of all these other things, and it could be many other things as well. But that's just one thing, perhaps, that is a good reason for us to ask this question. As wonderful as are many of the things that I have received and continue to receive at this time of the year, there's always something in me that still longs for and desires for joy and contentment that doesn't fade. Like anybody else, I like to get presents. I mean, I'd be lying if I said I didn't. Of course I like to get presents. But I sometimes wonder what would happen if I got no presents whatsoever. None. You ever think about that? None, except the greatest present of all. And that's Jesus. We talk about this all the time. What would happen if actually God took me at my word, you know, and I got nothing but him? How would I feel? It's a good question for us to reflect on. Not because the presents are unimportant or people should not be buying presents for each other, but like, what's our real priority when all is stripped away? Like, where do we really search for and found our joy? Where is it rooted in? Where is it founded upon? It's a healthy question for us to ask at this time of the year. And it's usually established, I'll mention a few things in a moment, by priorities. I mentioned this before, it's priorities, priorities, priorities. I've learned over the years, this hopefully does come with time, that these feelings don't come from what we have or what we do, the desires that we really want, this deep satisfaction, this deep contentment, but it's really from the one we prepare for, and that is the birth of Jesus Christ. We are all preparing, of course, for Christmas. We decorate, we cook, shop. Well, I don't cook, to be very honest with you. I couldn't cook if my life depended on it. But, you know, we cook, shop, and plan gatherings. But sometimes we can feel more stressed than satisfied. Instead of a dominant reality of joy that this season should bring, we feel pressure, a growing stress cloud over our head, a creeping fatigue feeling settling in. Instead of contentment that I spoke about a couple weeks ago, we feel like we are running on empty, like the old Jackson Browne song. So if you know that, don't betray your age. It's all too often the case that in our efforts to make Christmas perfect, we often miss the joy we're supposed to be celebrating. What is that joy? Well, many people probably have a different answers than the one the Scriptures give us. The Scriptures, what they say is that we long for the kind of joy and contentment that Elizabeth and her unborn child, John, experienced when Mary brought Jesus into their home. The story of Mary visiting Elizabeth is a glimpse of true contentment. Mary, carrying Jesus, comes to her cousin Elizabeth, even though Mary herself had every reason to stay home and focus on her own needs. From where Mary was to Mary where he was going to be to visit her elder cousin was about 100 miles. 100 miles in those days took a long time to travel, and it was very difficult. It was exhausting. So this would take, I haven't calculated this, or I didn't do the work, the math, but it's 100 miles, which takes quite a while in those days. So by the time she gets to Elizabeth's house, she's tired. She's probably exhausted, or just, really tired. When Mary arrives, Elizabeth is filled with joy, not primarily because of Mary's news or her presence, but because Mary brings Jesus. And this is acknowledged when she says, "Blessed are you among women, and blessed is the fruit of your womb." That's the second part of the Hail Mary. So that's where the church gets it from. The first part, of course, is, Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee, from the Archangel Gabriel. And so the Hail Mary is thoroughly scriptural, and the last part of it is ecclesial. It's from the church. And John, still in the womb, leaps for joy. And Luke, when he talks about this, first of all, a leap. Now, I have no idea. I couldn't know this in 10 lifetimes, but moms know this. I assume a leap is not a kick. A kick is a kick. My child is kicking. But this is a leap for joy. And when Our Lady heard of this, and she told Luke, both of them could remember David dancing before the Ark of the Covenant. Don't kid yourself. These people knew their scripture. So David danced before the Ark, and he was just elated with joy and almost beside himself with almost ecstatic joy. John the Baptist is doing the same thing, not because he's in the presence of the Ark of the Covenant, which is an object, but he's in the presence of the real Ark, the Ark of Jesus, who is Jesus Christ, God made flesh. So the presence of Jesus is the source of their deep, bursting joy and contentment. Micah chapter 5 foretells this moment. The ruler born in Bethlehem, the shepherd who brings peace and contentment to his people. Mary embodies this prophecy. She carries the one who brings true joy and shares him with others through humble service. She does not keep Jesus to herself, but in effect shares him. She gives him away and will continue to do so throughout her entire life, to let him go. Any mother knows how difficult this is. But it was required of Mary, in cooperating with God's will, to do the best she could to raise him and then to let him go, to not hold on to him. She couldn't have anyways, but the point is she cooperated fully and completely with God's will, and this cost her, as it would cost any mother or father. You know this. Moms and dads know this. But Mary always did this. The only time she kind of let it out, her difficulty was when they lost him for 3 days and they found him, and she said, why did you do this? It wasn't like, why did you do this? But rather, why did you do this? Like, I don't understand. And he said in response, why wouldn't you look for me here in the first place? More or less. Like have to be about my father's business. It's my father, and there's his foster father, but he's saying my father, and they don't understand. But they immediately assent. They don't say, well, we don't understand. They agree, they assent to God's will, and then he obeys them. He obeys, and he disappears out of the public scene for 30 years. It's truly stunning. So what about you and me? Are you preparing for Christmas by focusing on Jesus Christ? Now, I know I'm talking to people in church, but sometimes we have to ask ourselves the most obvious questions of all, because we shouldn't take for granted anything in our life, in a way, because it's all gift. And it's so easy for me, anybody, any one of us, to get caught up in the hustle and bustle of everything, for different reasons. So it's a good question for all of us to reflect on. Are you preparing for Christmas by focusing on Jesus Christ? Remember Martha? There's Martha, there's Mary, there's Jesus right in the middle of them. Martha's serving, Mary's at his feet, and she's getting ticked off at her sister. And she says, Lord, why don't you tell her to get up and help me? So these are two holy women. These are good people. These are holy people. And Jesus is not saying your serving is unimportant, Martha. He's saying, Martha, you've lost your priorities. Mary's got the priorities right. And he's not saying she shouldn't get up and help you. He's saying that Mary's got the priority right, and the priority is me. And if you've got me first, Martha, you won't be upset. You may be tired, but you won't be upset. So this is a challenge for all of us, because we've got all these things coming in at us like a tsunami of information and wants and do's lists and all this kind of thing. What is primary in your life, or is what is primary in your life the chasing of temporary sources of happiness that can leave you or any one of us empty? The things I mentioned, as I said a moment ago, are not bad in and of themselves, but they can crowd out the primary source of joy, the one that should dominate our lives, and that is Jesus Christ. Like Mary, we are called to bring Jesus to others, not with grand gestures. For the most part, it's not with grand gestures, but through simple, humble acts of service. Here you've got the Mother of God, the Queen of the angels and saints, and she goes 100 miles. She helps out her cousin. It's not recorded what she did, but it was obviously ordinary, everyday household activities, and then she leaves. No fuss. There's no big party for her. She just leaves. Her service is done. She's no longer needed, and she goes back home. True joy and contentment come when we carry Jesus with us and serve others for love of God. Remember, I said that you might, several weeks ago, maybe 4 or 5 weeks ago, I said you might be the only Bible that people ever read. Think about that. You might be the only Bible that people ever read. People never read the Bible, but they read you, your life, your example, by the way you conduct yourself. They see me coming. I'm the walking advertisement. So it's like, the priest, we have to put on our best act or our best show, or we run and, we hightail it. But not you. You are the Bible that people will never read. And then I use this image that you can be a living YouTube video because you are real and in person that draws someone to Christ or repels them, again, because of your behavior. Now, the same thing applies to me, but in a more obvious, out there in your face kind of way. Today, with the mail strike having just ended, there's a gazillion pieces of mail, to sort through. You can be the courier, like Elizabeth, that brings Jesus Christ to those, especially those in need, to bring joy to their lives, to serve them. It can fire our hearts if we imagine what our homes, communities, and parish would be like if we really tried to live out this mindset. If we stopped measuring joy and contentment by what we have or what we get and started measuring it by how we bring Jesus Christ to others without seeking attention for ourselves, just like Mary did. In these remaining days of Advent, and it's not over till it's over. It's like the exams are not, the school year is not over till the final exam is written, and then you can go, yes! As long as you've prepared well and were able to put your excitement on the shelf in order to focus on study and not sort of, start anticipating the season before you actually did the studying you needed to do. So with that sort of same dynamic, in these days remaining of Advent, let us really try to take our cue from Mary. Let us focus on allowing Jesus to be brought into every interaction that we have. It takes being intentional, decisive, working at it. Many times we'll be completely oblivious. But again, we try again, even if I have to write a note to myself. Let's discover and receive joy and contentment in his presence and the joy of serving one another. So in these 3 short days remaining in Advent, intentionally serve someone in some small, meaningful way. For the most part, you don't have to look much further than your family. As you do, remember, contentment and lasting joy come from Jesus Christ and overflows in joyful service. Let's prepare for Christmas by embracing the joy of Jesus and sharing him with others. This is where true joy and contentment are found. And this will leave you fulfilled, even though tired, but I would contend, not exhausted.